Alright, you guys, it is Tuesday, March 28th of 2023, and a video like this is much overdue. Really, the thing that has been holding me back is I do not know how to video edit at all, and I really have no motivation to learn, so right now, I'm literally screen recording a tiny section of my screen, literally have a Word document open, and these are my notes. I don't have a script. I have my cell phone to look up some things, and I have 4 bullet points to guide me. Because I want to talk about just the arrogance of human beings, because it's astounding. And really, I guess like the 4 bullet points that I have on my phone is I want to paint you guys a background picture, because there's a lot to talk about. And then when we finally get to humans, that'll be its own discussion. And then I want to talk about, where we find ourselves, because we're at an interesting time period. And then, what can we do? But before I talk about anything else, the picture you're looking at, I don't know if anyone would really be able to figure out what it is without me saying. But this is a language map of Africa. And look at this. Less than 20% of languages shown due to space. So here in America, we talk about race and black and white, and I mean, it's made up. Most of the way that we live our lives is made up. I'll explain more, but I do want to say I'm not trying to offend anyone. I do really respect people's views, even religious views. I think I've matured. I'm 27, but I've gone through my periods of extreme dislike towards religion, just because it is frustrating, but I really do respect people's religion. So if you're religious, or if you think your opinions are like central to who you are as a person, and you don't want the shock of finding out maybe everything you thought was a lie, like, I would suggest you not watch this. But if you're not religious, or you really do just want to see this, or like listening to me talk, that's fine. Welcome. I do respect people's opinions, but obviously, if you want to ever talk about science or something, like, you're just gonna get destroyed if you have views that are absurd. So if you think that the black race of people exists, then you're extremely wrong, because I guarantee you that somebody in Somalia does not give a damn about somebody in Tanzania, just because they're black. It's not a real thing. America has a really awful history, and of course, I'll talk about, man, there's so many videos I could do, but I seriously need to learn how to make actual good quality videos. But anyway, whatever, it's kind of like a podcast. But there's no black race. And look, there's the white people's stain. You hear that? I said white people after just saying black isn't a race. White isn't a race either. I guarantee you the difference between people from Portugal and Russia, at least in the state of nature before modern society, very, very, very different groups of people. And that doesn't, like, humans, everything we think is biased because we have evolved to think a certain way. Humans really have a hard time, accepting that we're animals for some reason. It's almost an insult to call somebody an animal. But like, buddy, sister, we are clearly animals. I mean, we suffer the same diseases. There's diseases that can be spread through species, which obviously happened with COVID. I mean, this world is so complex, and humans have evolved in very specific circumstances. In case you didn't know, we actually evolved in response to the Ice Age, the last Ice Age. So our entire evolution as humans has been in regard to an Ice Age, which is interesting. I don't want to argue or talk about too many specifics, like, if you don't know how we age the earth using rocks, like, look up stuff like that. I don't know everything. I don't know anything. That's the whole point of this video, is that we as humans, we are so arrogant, so cocky, we don't even think we're animals anymore. Like, that's absurd. The problems we face, specifically, I think the catalyst to finally make me actually make this video was, the shooting in Nashville with the transgender woman. Like, there's just so much to unpack there. And I want to start way back at the beginning. And, I think I have some pretty okay notes. There's a lot to talk about. And like I said, I'm not reading a script. Like, this is one go. If I need to look up anything, I'll look up, stuff on my phone. But I'm just winging it, and I love it. That's how I live. That's not for everyone. But, I mean, this map is one of my favorite things I've ever seen. It's so cool. And spoiler alert, we all came from Africa. So, as humans, like, we like to... I come from, like, a science background. So, we try to think and categorize things, give them specific definitions, and, like, it's not real. That's just how humans, like, think. That's how we've evolved to think. And so we're so arrogant that we think that everything has to be the way that we think it is. And that's not true. I mean, it's so obvious. But I'm assuming everyone watching this, or at least most people, are not from a scientific background. So if you are, you really have to have patience with people, and that's okay. I think I've really become very patient. And so, yeah, let's continue. So, oh, I think a common thing that people don't understand about evolution, like, you hear people say, oh, you think we came from, like, monkeys or something. Like, it's not how it works, brother. There's a continuum. In fact, there are extinct human species, and we're going to talk about it. This is before even they were humans, but this is so close to a human that it's like you can see that this is the evolution from more, chimp-like to human-like. These are the species that constitute that family. I'll show you a picture. This is like clearly this is this looks like a fusion of, like an orangutan and a human. And that's what these species are. This is before humans. Humans came after, but you can see, like, it didn't go from chimps to humans. That's not how evolution actually works. So if you ever want to actually argue and you don't even know how, like, basic stuff works, you see where the issues lie. And people have political opinions, and they don't know what a cell is. And if you want to talk about science, but you don't know what a cell is, like, I don't know how to tell people in any nicer way that you have absolutely no clue what you don't even know. And the more I learn, the more I know that we don't know anything, because there are so many complexities. I mean, evolution is crazy, and we think of it in human terms. We think of it as a noun, but, like, evolution isn't a coherent thing. It's an abstract, quote unquote force. How do you even define, like, what evolution is? How do you even think about such a complicated thing? And, humans are good at simplifying complicated things with, simple models, and they're pretty effective a lot of the times, but we just always have to know that we are, at the end of the day, we're animals, and we have evolved a very specific way, and in a very specific context. Like, we're not accidents. People that don't know anything about evolution are, like, looking at the complexity of humans. They hear that, like, our brain has 100 billion neurons or whatever in it. You hear that in a vacuum, and it's absolutely, like, mind-boggling. Like, we didn't evolve to understand 100 billion of anything. So, but we did not evolve in a vacuum. I mean, like, you guys, the line back to, like, the last common ancestor of all living things is absurd. This Earth is 4.4 billion years old, okay? Humans, Homo sapiens, we don't even know what a human is. Like, when we talk about humans, there's actually multiple species we're talking about, but Homo sapiens is specifically what we are, and we have been around for 300,000 years. This Earth is 4.4 billion years old. Do you know how little time we have existed in the context of everything? Not to mention, we don't even have accurate history. Still, probably, like, our news is probably just so wrong and so biased, and, like, even still, we do not have completely accurate history. We never will, because we're humans who are biased. We can't have unbiased. These are human concepts that are made up. There's no universals. We really try to think of universals as humans. Like, do numbers exist really on their own? But, like, brother, we're asking these questions from the human perspective, so we can't imagine other intelligent, what other kinds of intelligence could exist. But as we continue to talk about this subject, you'll see that there very well could have been intelligence from dinosaurs, like human equivalents. A lot of the evolutionary history of this earth is just chance. Like we think about the dinosaurs and we think about them being old and maybe outdated, but they were some of the best. See, I'm using, even the way I talk, like using the word best, that is a human word. There's no universal best. How could you say what the best animal that's ever lived on this planet is? That's just human made. But I'm saying dinosaurs were around for hundreds of millions of years. I mean, they were some of the most efficient at what they did. Humans have been around, Homo sapiens have been around for 300,000 years. Dinosaurs were around for millions, hundreds of millions, and they got wiped out by something that they could never have, done anything about it. If a huge meteor, hit the Earth today, or it's more likely that in this day and age, volcanoes would cause a mass extinction. Because actually the Earth gets bombarded now far less than it used to be because of our atmosphere and all kinds of stuff, man. There's so much complexity to it. But think about it. If like 10 of the Earth's volcanoes went off at once and dumped all that ash in the air and, it blocked the sun for a year, I mean, it would be the end times. Basically, there's been a bunch of extinction events, 6 major ones. And most of them are caused by, the earth warming up significantly, or, volcanoes, or all kinds of stuff. I mean, think about it. In a million years, the probability of something random or some crazy natural disaster happening is so high that you could be the, most evolved species ever. But if there's a life-ending event, like, and you're a certain size, you just can't survive, But even from the wreckage of mass extinction events, so many species blossom out of that. And it's really, really cool. That's why I love studying like evolution and stuff. It's just fascinating, but it's complicated, and we don't even know what a species is like. Think about it, like a donkey and a horse are 2 different species. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but they can still reproduce. I mean, their children will be fertile. Same happens with a tiger and a lion. You get a liger, it's fertile, it can't reproduce. It's shooting blanks or whatever. And that happens between 2 different species, but like, how do you differentiate what's a different species from a subspecies when they look the same? We're visual creatures as humans. We've evolved to rely very heavily on our eyesight. So if something looks the same, we just assume, it is the same or closely related, but there's something in evolution called convergent evolution, in which, a favorable trait evolution-wise, in which, it helps you spread on your genes. Holy crap, I just completely forgot what I was gonna say. Convergent evolution. Yeah, so like if a particular shape is favored, it offers an advantage, like wings or something like that. Then multiple species that aren't closely related will evolve to look the same because it is favorable to exist in that state. As an example, flight has evolved 4 different times in insects. It evolved in pterosaurs, which are archosaurs, closely related to the dinosaurs. Those were the pterodactyls. We have mammals and bats. And then we have birds, which are actually dinosaurs, true dinosaurs. Crocodiles, alligators are not dinosaurs. Pterodactyls were not dinosaurs. They were related to the dinosaurs. But birds are actually strictly dinosaurs. They came from I'm pretty sure it's the Tyrannosaurid line, or closely related to. I have pictures down somewhere else. I forget, but okay. So I'll try not to get too distracted. Okay, so this is the entire history of the Earth. Let me actually extend my screen recording so I can get it all, if I can. I'm sorry, guys. This is so scuffed. Whatever. Whatever. Just look at this. Okay, so the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, right? So during that time, again, if you have any questions on how we know this stuff, like, look it up. Some of it I don't know off the top of my head, but I do know when the Earth was first formed, like, it was a pretty violent event, a lot of like space debris colliding, and so basically for 500 million years you have just a lot of violent collisions, and as soon as the Earth cooled down enough, water forms. Because when you burn hydrogen, when you burn anything in the presence of oxygen, you get water. So, like, the chemistry is really, really simple. And surprisingly, you get life almost instantly. Think about that. Life is so favorable from random biomolecules that you get the first cells pretty much as soon as you can. That is so cool. And guys, it's complicated, but I'll give you an example. There's something called a micelle, and it's the basics of how soap works. So when you have a specific lipid with a certain shape, it will naturally form a sphere that kind of looks like a cell around an interior. And basically, it's the molecules orienting so that their components that don't like to interact with water are facing each other. And then, the component of the molecule that does interact with water is facing the water. So you can get like natural bubbles that look like cells. I mean, they're called micelles. It's normal. So that's like the major component of a cell is the membrane. And I mean, it forms naturally when you wash your hands. So it's not like a big deal for a cell membrane. But the big deal and the key to life, I think everyone knows, is DNA and RNA. Maybe people are less familiar with RNA, but it's similar to DNA, as you can imagine. And it is thought that the original cells actually had RNA as their DNA, their instructions. And RNA is actually fascinating. It's really similar to DNA, but at the same time so different. And just like a really slight chemical modification can really change a molecule. Anyways, RNA can actually catalyze reactions like catalysts, like proteins. So think about it. If you get a micelle around RNA that can catalyze its own reactions and can replicate itself and pass on its genes, like, you already have a basic cell. And if you ever hear, survival of the fittest, the principles of evolution are pretty self-explanatory. I mean, think about it. If you put a bunch of things together and they have to utilize the resources around them for energy, to grow, you got to eat, consume whatever. Just putting things around each other that will compete will result in evolution, and you'll have pretty much an arms race from the beginning of things that are most successful at reproducing will do so. And what makes you more successful at reproducing is could be anything. Like, are you bigger? Are you stronger? Can you digest molecules faster? Can you do this, that, the third? And we're still thinking about single-celled life here. So, what cells can use this resource that's in abundance? But basically, you have that for another 500 million years. You get oxygen. Basically, the way that evolution works is, survival of the fittest, but there are literal physical constraints, right? We have evolved with specific gravity on Earth. Obviously, the gravity is not the same on the moon or Mars. So if life had evolved on any other planet, it would evolve in regards to, its environment. Like, what's its environment like? And you need oxygen for the chemistry to be possible to create macroscopic beings. Like, we have to breathe oxygen, and things that don't utilize oxygen can't grow to be macroscopic. There's just literal physical constraints that is beyond what even I know. Maybe another specific example is giraffes. Think about it, a giraffe's heart has to pump its blood to its brain. How tall can the brain, or how far away can the brain be from the heart before it's not physically possible for a muscle to produce that much pressure? Water's pretty heavy, and most of blood is water, or at least 50%. So, there's literal physical constraints. But look at this. From the beginning of Earth, we only get the animals that we are familiar with today here, 500 million years. Think about that. Look at this. That is how long it took for multicellular life to evolve. Okay, that is so long. And it was chance. Religious people will look at this and be like, how do humans happen randomly? Brother, this is more time than you can even fathom. And if you can't tell me what a cell even is, how are you gonna argue with me? But really, when you study biology, you study you start with the Cambrian explosion, which is like the diversification event that basically led up to most of the things we're familiar with. I mean, look at like how I mean, this is a blip on the radar. 500 million years, like it is a lot, but it's not a lot. Like considering how crazy, I don't know. It's mind-boggling, you guys. And there's something else I want to talk about. So humans, we only know things from a human scale. So there's a breakdown in how reality interacts at a certain scale. You know what I mean? Like when you're looking at microscopic things, they interact differently than things of, human size. Because there's a breakdown in scale, like the physics is different. And so, like, it is such a bizarre world. And the same is true for really big things like, you think of a solar system, like that's such a big area that we cannot understand it because it's just in the scale way beyond us as humans. And that's fine. Like, we literally evolved to take advantage of a specific environment. It wasn't in a vacuum. It was on Earth during this specific time with the specific amount of oxygen in the atmosphere. That's another thing. The Earth has changed a lot over time. I mean, the concentration of oxygen at some point was like 34%. Now it's 21%. That's a huge difference. But people think of oxygen like maybe if you're not scientific normally or in your occupation, you think oxygen's a good thing, but oxygen's actually really harmful. It's one of the strongest oxidizing agents, which in chemistry terms means it facilitates, burning, breaking things down. Some microscopic things cannot survive in the presence of oxygen. They don't have the right proteins to be able to deal with the breakdown products of oxygen, by the way, which contribute to human aging. It's likely that, the side products of oxygen, chemistry is things that causes us to age. So oxygen's pretty harsh. And could you imagine like higher concentration of oxygen? I don't know if things could grow bigger in that environment. Like depending on the environment, the physical constraints of anatomy and stuff vary so much. So we get some really bizarre like looking things to us, but in their environment they were good at what they did. And that's how evolution works. It doesn't matter what you look like, it's what you're good at. And it's so complicated that us as humans, like, we know a lot, don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, the technology behind this computer right now, I have like a newer Mac and like it's insane. It's so much complexity and it's nothing compared to our brains. Our brains are the most complicated thing ever. And you hear that like corny saying like our brain or we are the universe studying itself. Not only is that true, but when you put a bunch of humans together, we subconsciously carry out evolution. Capitalism is a lot like evolution. There's so many parallels. So think about that. Like we evolve by evolution. We have the ability to study evolution. And when you put enough of us together and we're all motivated by selfish drives, we imitate evolution. I mean, it's fascinating. It's so cool. It's such a powerful force, and we can only think about it in human terms, but it's so cool. And humans are so arrogant that from the beginning, like, we've worshipped ourselves. I mean, think about it. Obviously, I'm American, if you couldn't tell. And so, like, the context of America is, Christianity mostly. And, I mean, think about it, like, Jesus is considered God, and Jesus was a human. Like, we are worshiping ourselves. We think that God would look like a human. Like, that, what? We are so limited. Brother, we cannot eat, we can hardly eat uncooked food without, like, getting violently ill. Like, and that's because we were smart enough to utilize fire. And the reason that beings can't be perfect, first off, perfect is a made-up human word, but there, again, are physical constraints. Like, think about how much DNA you need to pack into a cell and need to replicate rapidly, like, to encode all the information to be able to survive all kinds of diseases and be able to eat like, it's not physically possible. So, obviously, you want to maximize, if you're thinking in terms of, like, capitalist terms, you want to maximize the efficiency of your storage, right, in your cells. So you don't want God, our DNA is already like whatever 2 billion base pairs long or whatever. By the way, some plants have way more DNA than humans, so it's not the amount of DNA that matters. It's so complicated that like it's just absurd. And we as humans assume we know like anything, and we don't know anything. We don't even know what most of the universe is made out of. Dark energy, dark matter, we don't even know what it is, but we know it has to exist. There's probably like, we know 3 dimensions of space. We know space-time maybe as a 4th dimension. I mean, for string theory to make sense, there has to be 11 dimensions. Are you kidding me? We do not even know what that means as humans, but we don't need to know. We did not evolve to know. We evolved to survive in very specific circumstances. And the way that we live now is very unnatural. I mean, cities have been, let's see, the first cities, I'm trying to think, like, I think ancient Sumeria, Mesopotamia, like 3,000 BC, so like 5,000 years ago, maybe, like, but let's say like 10,000 years or whatever, humans haven't been living naturally. So it took us, starting 300,000 years ago, it took us up until 10,000 years ago to even come up with cities. Like, humans we're not as dominant as you might think. Like, we act like, our advancements, which have been passed down from generation to generation to generation, we act like we that are living today and benefit from our technology, we act like we had any contribution to the advancement of humankind, and most people don't even know what a cell is, or like what electricity actually is. So I'm not sure actually anyone knows what electricity actually kind of is, but I don't know. People don't know like really basic stuff, and they act like they know everything. And racism was a huge part of American history, and race it's not even a real thing. It's a human made up term, and we're not meant as humans to live in cities. Like, think about our evolution. Like, how many people can you know intimately at a time? I couldn't imagine you could really know more than 100 people really well. Like, that's probably what a natural group of humans would be. Maybe not even that much. And at some point, we could have recorded it. Like, think about when the Europeans first contacted the Native Americans. First off, the Native Americans were Asians. I mean, like, they were from Asia. I think they crossed the land bridge 30,000 years ago, and humans have been around for 300,000 years. And we all came out of Africa somewhere around 100,000 years ago. So yeah, there's no Native American people. We all evolved from Africa and left. And there was more species of human. There was Neanderthals. There's so much. We lived with other species of humans. Could you imagine? I mean, think about how racist humans are and how much hatred there is now, and we're the same species. Could you imagine another species? I mean, there are literal, historical. There were some zoos, European zoos, where they had like, I think people from Papua New Guinea there in exhibits, because the people from Papua New Guinea were like 4 foot tall or something. They were like really small, and like the Europeans weren't sure if they were humans, and like they were. So I don't know. I just don't get how you could hate any person for just existing. Like, I don't know. I used to be, I'm gonna have to get a drink real fast, but I used to be really cynical, and I think I've kind of matured, and I tend not to get as frustrated anymore with humans. I kind of accept us, but we need to do better, and we know how to do better. And there's a lot of problems, you guys. There are some serious problems. We have dumped, like, there's so much garbage in the ocean, and it's so polluted, and there's been nuclear waste dumped in the ocean. And in case you guys didn't know, like, that stuff stays radioactive pretty much forever. Humans will probably be extinct by the time, like, a lot of the stuff's safe. In case you didn't know, everything on Earth breaks down over time. Like, no matter what it is, steel, rock, everything breaks down. So if we make containment vessels to hold in radioactive waste, like, it's going to break down and come apart eventually. And we have it in the oceans. Like, there's just so many things that we have done in our arrogance and in our misunderstanding, and all the, species we've caused to go extinct. Like, there's so much damage. And at the end of the day, humans still might be evolutionarily, like, selected for. Like, humans could literally destroy the world. Life would probably go on, by the way, at least microscopic life, and given enough time, microscopic life will become macroscopic. It's almost a guarantee, given, proper conditions. but there's a guarantee that humans will go extinct, whether we make it till the end of time, meaning, when the sun blows up and we literally could not live on the world anymore, or if we, cause ourselves to go extinct through nuclear warfare, because that's a thing, unfortunately. God, there's so many videos I could make. It's absurd, but I'm gonna try to keep on track as I can. But oh my God, this is a quote. This is a quote from the president after Lincoln. By the way, our Lincoln is considered like our darling president, and he was very, very racist. So, I mean, like, the world we live in is pretty screwed up. Humans are pretty screwed up. We're not evolved to get along. I mean, it's how it is. That doesn't mean that it's justified. We literally know when we're, being idiots, but we still do it anyway. I don't even know what I was talking about, but if you want to read this quote, you can. But this is the president after Lincoln. So, I mean, he's talking about how black people are a single race. First off, I mean, think back to that map of Africa. The U.S. could fit, like, within the Sahara where, like, nobody lives. So, like, Africa's enormous. It is the most genetically diverse place in the world. And we're so simple as humans that we see, like, just black skin and we're like, oh, that's one people, when there's, like, literally a billion people in Africa nowadays. Anyways, this is the president of the United States not that long ago. I mean, 1867. We've been talking about billions of years. I mean, this is literally like a millisecond and a microsecond. Here, you can see this looks complicated. These are all the species of humans that we think exist. We see sapiens. This is kind of weird looking. I like this diagram, but this is 2 million years ago. It's when you see the first human species, habilis. And this map basically shows their spread. So habilis was probably mostly in Africa, and then you see erectus start to branch out, went all over the world. Then we don't even know, like, if some of these are individual species or just, like, who knows, man? What even is a species? It's not like, there's a real thing in nature where there's a specific definition of species. Like, no, man, things just evolve. So there's some kind of continuum here. But look at this. We lived at the same time as potentially 2 other human species that are extinct. We don't know what happened to them. Nobody will ever be there to tell us the answer. If you still believe in God, like, I'm sorry, but God would never even, I don't know, we made religions up, so we literally made God based on us. So why would God, if it theoretically had existed, not give us a heads up that, hey, there were other human species, probably aliens? When we think aliens, I think we think a humanoid species, but depending on what, the environment is of whatever world they came from, they could just be bacteria. Like, it depends on what resources are available to them. But anyways, yeah, so look at this. There's so much to talk about. So this is like, when you study dinosaurs and such, this is like the system, how we classify things. Most people are familiar with, where is it? Jurassic. Here's the specific terms that are used. It's kind of complicated. But basically, like, look at all the stuff that we as humans have figured out through the fossil record, through drilling through rock and testing for radioactivity, through drilling through ice cores in Antarctica. Like, there's fossils. There's so many things that we can deduce from the record. And radioactive dating is, like, a really simple concept and so powerful. And look up videos if you want to learn about it. I've taken a little bit of notes about what happened during these time periods, but humans, this is all human made up stuff, but we try to make it kind of objective in reality by saying that, like, time periods are distinguished through, like, extinction events or whatever, the earth warming up or the concentration of carbon dioxide, oxygen in the atmosphere is changing, and it has changed a lot of times, guys. People think carbon dioxide is, like, bad, quote unquote, but it's not necessarily at all. In fact, it is completely necessary for our survival. So, like, there's a lot of things that people just don't know anything about because they've never studied this stuff, but these people have opinions on things that regard these things that I'm referring to. So, like, how can you have opinion on something that you don't know anything about? And even the people that are quote unquote experts on this stuff don't know anything because nobody was around during this time to be there, and we are just making assumptions, so we don't know anything. There have been so many, we have no clue how many things have existed on this earth. Think about it, like, fossils are kind of hard to form, so you need like a really specific event to even form fossils. So like, if one particular species didn't get captured in the fossil record, we'll never know about it. So I mean, that's the point of this video, is that we just don't know anything while still knowing a lot of things. And it doesn't mean that we throw our hands up in the air in defeat. It doesn't mean we sit there and be pessimists and feel sorry for ourselves. We act like mature adults. We realize the situation we're in, and we try to make the best of it. And you know what? I am not sorry that I live in this time. Oh my god. It's not necessarily that humans in nature have a bad quality of life. It's just that, like, the universe does not care. Care is a human made up thing. We have evolved to care for each other because that's how we survive. The universe does not care. So, you know, if you're living in prehistoric times and you're walking with your daughter and a wolf eats your daughter, like, there's no justice, there's no, you know what I mean? It was how reality was. But we know this in we have problems with the ways that we live because they're not natural to the earth. Things cannot evolve to deal with humans because it's too fast. This is periods of millions of years. Like, humans have been around for 300,000, and we've really been causing damage for, like, God, what, like 1,000 years? That's it? And so much, like, irreparable damage. I'll give you, like, I've already mentioned radiation. Radiation is pretty much not natural on Earth. For you science people, I want to be a little more specific. Don't get me wrong, visible light is electromagnetic radiation, but the radiation I'm talking about is like from, like, you know, humans, like concentrated uranium and stuff. Radiation in nature occurs at a very small scale. Like, uranium is very, very rare, so humans can only, like, make nuclear bombs when we really, really concentrate it. And so, like, life has not evolved to be able to deal with taking that much radiation damage. You know, it really screws up the DNA. That's the big thing. So, like, things have not evolved really to deal with it. That doesn't mean things couldn't evolve to deal with it. I'm just saying, if we ended the world with nuclear, you know, fallout, it would just be really, really devastating to everything that's lived. And, like, not only would we go extinct, but most things would go extinct. Some things would for sure survive, though. And it just begs the question, like, could intelligent life ever evolve again? I mean, it's kind of been random. Like, if the specific environmental conditions didn't exist when they did, humans likely wouldn't have evolved. You know, if the dinosaurs never went extinct, humans probably don't evolve. There's just it's so complicated, and we just, like, barely can even understand how to think about it. And so, you know, just never think you know everything. You don't know anything, man. Man or woman, again, I'm not trying to offend anyone. It's nobody's fault. It's just, like, literal limitations of existence. Like, things are just trying to survive. That's it. It, you know, quality of life isn't always a consideration. We don't even know if, like, we don't know if, like, depression is, like, a natural thing that would exist in the state of nature. Like, obviously humans grieve and stuff, but do you have time? You know, if you're just trying to survive the day and there's predators around trying to kill you, you can't just sit there and, like, not eat all day and be depressed, you know? Obviously depression is more than that, but I'm just saying, like, in a state of nature, it's probably not a thing to be depressed, really, for extended periods. Probably it would be selected against. So there's a lot of things that we just, like, don't know. Our brain is so complicated. So when something like mental illness comes up, like, how do we even study it? It's so complicated. It doesn't mean we should give up or whatever. It's just that we should always be self-aware and know what our limitations are. And that's true not only as humans, but as a person individually. So, I mean, like, I could literally talk about this stuff for hours. How long have I even been recording? I don't know. Probably like 35, 40 minutes. And, like, I haven't even began to talk about, like, the evolution of humans or anything. So, I guess I might have to make this a multiple part because I'm kind of firing out. I've talked a lot. Yeah, I probably will, but this will be like the first part in this series. The main point of this is just to establish that we as humans do not know a lot. We know a lot, but we don't know anything at the same time. So we can never. Um, I don't think it's fair to, obviously fairness is made up human thing, but I just, why would we disrespect the planet like we do? Like it's not worth it. Everything we live is a lie. Like government is made up. America's not a real thing. There's no objective America. It's human made up thing. Like animals don't care about country borders, bro. Unless there's a physical barrier blocking them from a border, animals will cross the border. It doesn't matter where they are. That's all they know. That's all that they care about. And they probably don't even care. It's probably all just built into their DNA. We don't even know like what is mostly stored in DNA. DNA is insanely complicated. Humans have labeled like a lot of the human DNA, we don't really know what it does, so we label it junk DNA. Are you kidding me? In a world where you're trying to optimize and streamline everything, do you think that humans would have a billion base pairs of wasted DNA that does nothing? Like, come on, brother. You don't have to be a genius to be like, okay, come on. There's something in there. And it's probably, what's stored in there is probably, I don't know if you could ever say for sure, but it's probably like a lot of reflexes coded in there and instincts. And that's probably what most of DNA codes for other animals. Like, obviously, it's going to code instructions for biomolecules, but it very well could code for a lot of, instinct. And I don't know. It's like, how could you know? We're humans. Like, we're not meant. See, I have to use a word like meant. It's literally the limitations of human language. Oh, by the way, you know that writing only evolved. It only came about when humans started to live together in cities because they had to keep track of like. It evolved not to like talk about facts and poetry. Like writing literally evolved for a specific purpose to keep track of like supplies and things that a city would need. Not people didn't have time to sit there and think about what God was like when you're trying to just survive. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. If you ever want to think about human problems, you have to think about it because in the context of evolution, because we're animals and we don't like to think about ourselves as animals, but it's so obvious, and it's so obvious everything that we live is a lie. Marriage is a lie, like religion's a lie, like it's obvious. Government's a lie. It's not natural. That's not how humans would have existed. It's not how like chimps and things that are our closest relatives alive today live. It's not how that entire list of human species I showed you lived. We're unique in that way, for better or for worse. So when we have problems like school shootings and stuff like that, like we have to think about it as humans, from the animalistic viewpoint, because like I said, humans in nature are not living in huge groups. Like we just we don't get along, and we're very jealous, and God, you know how humans are. I mean, we're all humans. And it is the way it is. Like, I know I do stupid stuff all the time. I'm a guy, for God's sakes. Like, testosterone makes guys stupid as heck. Like, I don't know. It's so complicated. It's hormones. And dudes will literally inject testosterone into themselves. Like, I lift and stuff, but I would never, because it is so complicated. You have no idea, like, what you just did, and, like, how much is your lifespan limited now? Like, you don't know. What's the natural human lifespan? Probably like 40 years. Oh, I think on a tangent I forgot to talk about. When we could have studied humans living in a natural state, like Native Americans, the Europeans that came into contact with them just like instantly just thought they were inferior because they didn't have civilization like Europeans did. So there could be no objective study of humans in the natural state. Like, history is so screwed up. Humans have been so brutal to each other. And I mean, it makes sense in the context of evolution, because like everything's a competition, for better or for worse. Evolution's a big, you know, humans I guess would call it a game, but game in English has connotations of being for fun, and surviving is, I wouldn't say for fun. We're trying to think about it from a human perspective, so it's limited, but things are just trying to survive. So I mean, it's a brutal reality, and we just deny it, and it causes us problems. So if we ever really want to understand ourselves and the problems we have with society, we have to approach it from a biology perspective, because we are animals, we are products of biology, we are products of our environment, we are very reliant on our environment, and if, well, we clearly are forced to live together. Like, I mean, obviously you could go live out in the woods, but I mean, it's just not realistic for most people. So we find ourselves in this situation. We have incredible technology. We just really need to adjust our ethics to this day and age, which, I mean, that's a whole nother discussion, but I just think the politics of, the two generations above us is just so outdated. Like, we just know so much more than we ever have, and we look back at history and we cringe at just awfulness of a lot of it. And that just comes with hindsight, but that's the purpose of this video, maybe a series of videos. It's just, we need to do better. And I mean, like, there's so much to talk about, but like, I kind of just wanted to do this as a podcast. I don't want to obsess too much over the details, because like, this isn't a presentation. Obviously, I could just talk about this forever. And I've spent like, I don't know, I've been studying just stuff like this since like 2013. So I mean, it's been 10 years, on and off, for better or for worse. I put in a lot of hours learning this stuff, and I still don't know anything, and I could be wrong, and nobody's really an expert on anything, and that's the whole point of this. I try to keep it scientific, but like, how do you talk about certain things scientifically? Like, that's where sociology comes into, and a lot of scientists scoff at it because they're arrogant and they think, oh, I'm studying objective reality. You're studying humans and you're just making up stuff. Like, but brother, how do you like objectively study or quantify human behavior? Like, it's just, I don't know. It's hard to talk about everything purely scientific. Like, that's just human wish. So some things, you kind of just have to make up your own theories, or take other people's word for it. I think humans are disproportionately carried by a very select minority, meaning that like, there have been really, really smart people that have existed, and they disproportionately advance our understanding of reality, and we all take credit for it, even though we don't do anything, even though most of us are just like sheep followers, kind of. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with being a sheep follower. It's just that, like, if you ever try to, like, argue with people or voice your opinions, like, you're gonna get destroyed. And like, it's nothing personal. It's just like, how do you tell somebody, like, buddy, read something? Like, you can't have opinions and hate somebody if you have never read a book. Like, I don't know. That's just my way of thinking. I don't think I'm that smart. I just think I'm like kind of realistic. But yeah, there's so much to talk about. So I thank you to whoever's watching this. Probably mostly people I know, but by chance, if random people are watching this, thank you so much. If a lot of people show interest, I'll definitely learn how to video edit, of course, maybe make presentations, certainly make more podcasts. But I kind of like the informality, right? Like, if somebody's sitting behind a screen just reading a script, like, do they really know what they're talking about? You don't know that. I have talked for God knows how long. My setup is so scuffed that like, I don't even know if I can check that. I mean, I can, but I'm just not going to. But thank you for watching, and much love. Try to learn something every day. Just realize you don't know anything. Don't make like opinions or viewpoints like the entire basis of your reality. Meaning, like, some people, I swear to God, like, base their existence on their race or their nationality or their gender or whatever. Like, that is not a good thing to, I don't know, personally, I don't think it's a good thing to base your conceptions of yourself based on like your religion or something. Like, like, one of your opinions that is an opinion shouldn't, like, if you're shown enough evidence that contradicts what you think, that shouldn't be devastating to you. You know what I mean? You should be able to be like, okay, fine, I'm a human, I can adapt. Like, I used to be religious, and I remember specifically like my first semester in biology. Like, I remember just like losing all feeling for religion. I remember specifically like that happening, and it did not shake me to my core at all. I was completely fine. In fact, it was kind of like peaceful. Like, I used to pray every night and everything, and it was kind of like I was at ease with that. Because like when you die, and you're just gone. There's nothing, like humans can't think like that. So we've made up heaven and hell and superstitions to get people to follow. And like, think about it. Religions that have not survived until now were ones that maybe weren't as violent, maybe weren't as forceful. Like, something only survives thousands of years if there's force behind it. Or, culture is complicated. Like, humans by themselves are complicated. So when you put a whole bunch of them together, I mean, it's infinite complexity. But anyways, culture evolves over time, and entire cultures could be wiped out in generations. And it's kind of what happened to the Native Americans. Like, that's what the Europeans wanted to do, just like integrate them into society and basically stop them from being Native Americans, really, and just being another American, because there's no race that's American. Even Native Americans aren't American, they're Asian. Come on. They crossed the land bridge 25,000 years ago. How does that make them from America? They evolved in Africa and walked. Like, come on. But it happens over time, and it's really complicated. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and there will be hopefully more.